Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Rachel and welcome to my March wrap up. So I had a pretty good reading month in March. I did have a couple of 5 stars. I did have a few 2 stars, so it was really spread out. I feel like I read something from pretty much every genre, so it was a very interesting reading month for sure. Before we get started, make sure that you hit that subscribe button so you never miss one of my uploads. And without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so I'm pretty sure the first book that I read in March, it feels like March 1st was so long ago, but I'm pretty sure the first book that I read this month was The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. I did kind of talk about this book over the past few weeks in different videos, so I won't go too in depth with my feelings on this book, but this is a thriller. Lucy Foley wrote The Guest List and The Hunting Party. If you have read those, this is a very similar premise. This story follows a girl who goes to move to Paris to live with her brother. When she gets to his apartment though, he is not there. So she begins investigating and starts kind of interacting with his interesting neighbors and tries to find out what happened to her brother. I thought that the premise of this book sounded very, very interesting. Unfortunately, I just found this book to be so boring, you guys. Like, there really was no intrigue, no mystery. It was very slow burn. I definitely wouldn't call this a thriller. I definitely think it's more of a slow burn mystery, but I think that's just not for me. It's not my style. And so after reading this, I think that I will no longer be picking up Lucy Foley's work or really anything that's labeled as a slow burn mystery. I feel like with thrillers, I want to be shocked. You know, like I either want to be shocked or I don't want to read it at all. So this is definitely not for me. I gave it 2 stars. I just did not find it compelling, interesting. The plot twist at the end, I was kind of just like, okay, sure. I couldn't even care enough, honestly, to care about the plot twist at the end, so I don't recommend, and I am actually going to be unhauling this as soon as this video is over. Okay, so the next book that I read is Collided by Lauren Asher. I read this on my Kindle. This is the second book in the Dirty Air series by Lauren Asher, which is an F1 sports romance. I read the first book, Throttled, in February, I think, and I gave it 4 stars. I really liked it. I unfortunately gave this book 2 stars. This is like a friends to friends with benefits to lovers type of situation. We follow Sophie and Liam. I don't know. The problem that I have with this book was just that, one, Sophie was very much not like other girls. She compared herself to other women a lot, put other women down in comparison to her. It was very irritating to read about. And then Liam, his entire personality was how much he wanted to have sex with Sophie, and that is, I feel like, all that we got from him. There was some backstory stuff. I just didn't find it like interesting enough to kind of overshadow the fact that he just wanted to sleep with her. I just don't feel like this romance had an interesting enough plot going on. It was just such a disappointment from the first book, which I really liked, which did have like a good kind of interesting romance going on, but it also had, you know, some interesting character development, and the characters had more to them just than how much they wanted to sleep together. I just don't really feel like that was achieved in this book, so I did give it 2 stars. I am going to continue on with the Dirty Air series. There's 2 more books left, but I think after reading Collided, I kind of want to take a break from the series just because it was such a letdown from the first one. Okay, the next book that I read is Open Water by Caleb Azuma Nelson. It's a romance, but it's not. It's kind of like literary fiction and romance. It follows 2 people who live in London. One is a photographer, one is a dancer, and they meet and they fall in love. It kind of follows their love story. It not only follows their romance story though, it also just follows their experience as Black people living in London, police, you know, brutality, racial profiling, just racism in general. So all of that was very interesting and hard hitting. So it's definitely not like a happy, fun romance. It definitely tackles real world issues, and I do really appreciate the depth that gave this story. I did end up giving this book 3.5 stars though. I loved the story. I loved the characters. I thought that it was very compelling and moving, heartbreaking. There were moments of happiness. Like, it had a lot going for it, but it was written in second person, which is just a style of writing that I do not click with. It was also pretty, like, the sentences were very staccato, I guess you would say, and it just was a little, like, jarring at times. Like, there are some amazing, insane quotes in this book that I was just like, oh my god, yes, this is beautiful, amazing. And then these sentences would get like short and short and short, and it was just hard to follow along and to stay into it. So I did enjoy it, I do recommend it, but just because of the like second person writing style, it's not one of my favorites. The next book that I read in March was Wondersmith by Jessica Townsend. This is the second book in the Morgan Crow series. I loved it. It was 4 or 5 stars, I can't remember. I'm gonna say 5 stars though because I enjoyed this so much. This is a middle grade novel. It follows Morgan Crow, who is a young girl destined to die on her 11th birthday, but a magical man named Jupiter North comes, takes her away, and brings her to this place called Nevermore. She becomes part of this magical society and learns about some powers she has and everything. So I won't go too much into the plot of this book because it is the second in a series. You definitely need to read the first one in order to understand the plot of this book, but I loved it so much. I say it every single time I talk about this series, but if you have even just like the tiniest interest in reading middle grade, read this. Please read this series. It is so much fun. It is so lighthearted. It just makes me feel like a kid when I read it. I found out that there's going to be like 9 books in the series. The 4th one comes out in the fall, I believe. And I'm pretty sure that like every book is a new year for Morgan. So by the time the final book is out, I think she'll be like 17 or 18 years old. I just think that that's so cool. And I'm just looking forward to continuing on with the series. Another book that I read in the month of March is Hook, Line, and Sinker by Tessa Bailey. This was the second book in the Bellinger Sisters series. The first one is It Happened One Summer, which came out last year, I think, and then this one just came out on March 1st. It was a new release that I was very excited for, very much highly anticipated, and I did do a reading vlog featuring this book. I had very positive feelings about the book and I rated it 4 stars. However, my feelings have changed since I did that vlog, and I did lower the rating of this book to 3 stars. So very quickly, this book is presented as a friends to lovers. We are following Fox and Hannah, who are 2 characters that we met in the first book, It Happened One Summer. Hannah is the sister of the main character in that book, and then Fox is the best friend of the love interest in the first book as well. They meet in the first book and then they come together when Hannah has to go back to the town of Westport. She stays with Fox and you know, a little relationship ensues. I will say the things that I did enjoy about this book still stand. However, the reason that I lowered my rating is because I don't think that the friends to lovers aspect of this book was executed very well. And this is such presented as a friends to lovers book, and that's why I was so excited for it, because that is my favorite romance trope. The problem that I found after I thought about this book, I let it sit with me for a few weeks, is we never really established Fox and Hannah as like just truly platonic friends. And like, I think that is the best part of a friends to lovers story, is when you see a real true friendship develop. They're really good friends, it's pretty platonic until it's not. I hate to compare, but like People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry is my favorite romance of all time, and the friends to lovers is executed so well, and you truly see them be just friends. You see tiny hints of them having feelings for each other, but it's not laid on very thick, and then they change to like a romantic pairing. I just feel like they were into each other pretty much from like the first chapter or 2, and I just don't feel like we got to bask in the friendship, which is my favorite part because I feel like it's so rewarding once they do switch over to being interested in each other. So that is why I lowered my rating. I still definitely recommend it. I just don't recommend it for the friends to lovers aspect. I think it's a good romance novel, and I loved It Happened One Summer, the first book. I definitely prefer it to this one, and I think that if you read that book, you should read this one just because it's a nice little wrap up, but I just don't think it's like this amazing friends to lovers novel, so I gave it 3 stars. Okay, the next book that I read in March was Twisted Games by Anna Huang. This is the second book in the Twisted series. It is a romance series that follows 4 best friends. I did not read the first book, Twisted Love, just because I've seen a lot of bad reviews about it, and you don't have to read them in order. They are just kind of companion novels. So I was very interested in reading this one because it is a princess and bodyguard forbidden romance. It was amazing. I gave it 4 stars. It is literally the plot of Princess Diaries 2, in my opinion. Like, if you enjoyed Princess Diaries 2, you will love this book. Our main characters' names are Bridget and Reese. Reese is kind of this like grumpy and tough bodyguard, and then Bridget, she's very positive and happy. She is not interested in being princess, and she doesn't think that she ever will have to be because her brother is ahead of her in line to the throne. But when he abdicates, she has to become royalty. There is a rule that she has to get married, but she doesn't want to get married to the person that her grandfather is trying to get her to get married to. So yeah, literally Princess Diaries 2 if Chris Pine's character was a bodyguard. I cannot recommend enough. The spice is excellent, and there's actually a really good plot going on in the background too. My favorite type of romance is one that has an interesting plot and then just like great spice and romance and feelings all interconnected. And this achieved that so well. It was so good. I have no complaints. It just wasn't a 5-star because it wasn't like my favorite of all time. I recommend it 100%, and I'm really excited to continue on with the series. Okay, the next book or books that I read in the month of March was the Folk of the Air series by Holly Black. That is The Cruel Prince, The Wicked King, and The Queen of Nothing. Oh my god, I did an entire reading vlog about this, so I won't go into it too much, but I absolutely loved this series. This is my favorite YA fantasy series of all time. It is perfect. Cardan Greenbrier is everything to me. I love him so much. Jude Duarte is one of my favorite female main characters I have read about. She was awesome. I have no complaints. The series is perfection to me. I gave the first book 4 stars, the second book 5 stars, and the third book 5 stars. I give the whole series 5 stars. I think that The Wicked King is my favorite of the series for sure. If you don't know, this series follows Jude Duarte. She is a human who, due to some extenuating circumstances, ends up being raised in Elfhame, which is a fairy world. Humans are treated very poorly by the Fae, and her twin sister have a very hard time growing up, particularly at the hands of Prince Cardan Greenbrier. But Jude kind of slowly starts getting involved with the political goings-on of the royal family, and then her and Jude are just like the greatest enemies to lovers of all time. He literally throws her into a river. Even though this is definitely like an enemies to lovers story, it's not a full-on fantasy romance series. I would say it's political fantasy first, and the romance is secondary, but the romance is really good, and the characters are super well fleshed out. I didn't even mind. I mean, I think it would be a perfect book and book series if it was more of a romance fantasy for me personally, but it didn't bother me at all. I thought that the political intrigue and the fantasy and the world building were interesting enough to stand on their own, and just Cardan and Jude were just like an extra treat that we got. So I love this series. I recommend it so much. If you have not already read it, it's a super popular series already, so I'm sure you have. I love this series a lot, and I will be rereading the series for like the rest of my life, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so the next 2 books that I read in the month of March also have a dedicated reading vlog for them. I will have all of that linked down below, but I read the first installment of the Calloway Sisters series, which is Kiss the Sky and Hot House Flower. If you know, I have been slowly making my way through the Addicted / Calloway Sisters series, and I really did not like the first 3 books, Addicted to You, Ricochet, and Addicted for Now. I think I gave them all 2, maybe 3 stars, and it was like a low 3 stars. I was not interested or really invested in the main characters of that series, but I was still holding out a lot of hope because I did really enjoy Rose Calloway, Daisy Calloway, and Connor Cobalt, and I was kind of iffy on Reich Meadows. However, if you know, I read Kiss the Sky first. This is Rose and Connor's story. I absolutely loved it. It was 4 stars, and it just totally turned me around on the series. This book and Hot House Flower were going to be the deciding factors if I DNF'd the series, but this got me so excited for the rest of the series, and I loved it so much. Rose Calloway is my favorite female character in the book. I don't want to go into like too much because spoilers, but this book follows Rose Calloway as she agrees to be a part of a reality show chronicling her fashion line, and her family, and just like shit goes down basically with that. And then Hot House Flower is the next book in the series, and this follows Daisy Calloway, who is the youngest Calloway sister, and then Reich Meadows, and it follows their love story. And this is my favorite book in the entire series, and this is like a age gap sort of forbidden romance. I had so much fun reading this. I had so much fun. Oh my god, Reich Meadows is everything to me. I think he's my favorite guy. I hate to say it. I do now recommend the Addicted Calloway Sisters series, and I fully understand why this is so many people's favorite series of all time. These characters mean so much to me, and I would definitely say if you are somebody who likes character-driven stories, I definitely do. I more enjoy stories that focus deeply on characters, and I'm less concerned about plot. This is a really good series for you. If you like that type of thing, if you just want to like get super invested in characters and you just want to watch them live their lives, that is what this series is. So I enjoyed this so much. I'm really looking forward to continuing on with the series. I think I have like 5 more books left, and I think I'm gonna slow down on reading the series because I'm already scared for it to end because I love these characters so much. I did just like the biggest 180 on this series, and it is all thanks to these two books and to all of you who kept telling me to read it. Okay, so the next book that I read in March was Yoke by Mary H.K. Choi. Oh my god, I read this in one day, in one sitting. I listened to the audiobook. This is a 5-star. This is one of the best books I have ever read in my life. Oh my god, Mary H.K. Choi is amazing. Absolutely amazing. I don't even know what it is that I love about this book. I think that the characters are super realistic. I think that Mary H.K. Choi does a great job at writing characters who are not all good, not all bad. Like I said, just super realistic. I know that this book was super popular last year. A lot of people were talking about it, and I just now got to it this year, and I'm kind of kicking myself for it because this is incredible. This book follows two sisters who are living in New York City. They aren't very close, but then one of the sisters reveals that she has been diagnosed with cancer, and so this brings them together. But it's so much more than that. The sister dynamic was really, really done well. I have an older sister, and she did such a good job portraying like you can be so mean to your sister in 1 second, and then 2 seconds later you're like, oh, do you want to go shopping? You know, just like get over it so quickly. She did that so well. It was so real. I could talk about this book forever. I loved it so much. As soon as I finished this book, I immediately went and bought Mary H.K. Choi's other 2 books. I think these are her only other books, which are Permanent Record and Emergency Contact. Those 2 books kind of have lower ratings on Goodreads, but I don't care because Mary H.K. Choi is literally one of my favorite authors of all time now, just from this book. Like, she has blown me away. I will say, definitely heavy trigger warning for eating disorders. One of the main characters in the book does have an eating disorder, and she talks about it in detail at length. So just something to be aware of as you are going into it. I really enjoyed it otherwise, and I just think that Mary H.K. Choi is a genius. Like, I just love her. I love her so much. The story means so much to me. I also think that the cover is just beautiful, and of course, I'm sure you guys have seen this, but we have the 2 sisters holding hands here on the pages. It's just so cool. So yeah, one of my favorite books of all time, absolutely a contender for my favorite book of the year, and I just loved it so much. The next book that I read in the month of March is Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. I have been wanting to read this book for such a long time, but I have been intimidated because it is a friends to lovers romance once again, and I'm just kind of like cautious when authors say that because, you know, as I saw with Hook, Line, and Sinker, sometimes it's not executed well. This was so great, you guys. I gave this 4 stars. This follows 2 characters. It's a dual timeline. We meet them when they are kids, and then they become friends, and we watch their relationship grow. They lose contact at around like 18 or 19 years old, and then they see each other again 10 years later and kind of pick back up where they left off, or at least try to. I loved it so much. My favorite part of the book was the flashback to them like being kids and growing up together, which I thought I wasn't gonna like, but that was truly my favorite part. I loved watching them grow up, go through their teens, like mature and kind of realize that they might have feelings for each other. That was so great. So the only reason that I didn't give this book like 5 stars was I do feel like when they were adults, the stakes were like very low, and I feel like the tension wasn't really there, and I was kind of hoping that it would be a little bit harder for them to get back together. Elliot, as soon as he sees Macy for the first time in like 10 years, breaks up with his girlfriend, and then Macy is engaged, so you think that, oh, this is going to be tension and dramatic and this is going to be really hard, but like her fiance doesn't really care, and like they just break up amicably, and so I just feel like the stakes weren't really there. I will also say, check trigger warnings for this book as well. We do have the death of a parent, and I cried multiple times in book, like heavy cried at some just like really small moments when the main character talks about her mom and just kind of like how her life went after that. I was shocked. I thought this was going to be like a cute little romance. This is a very emotional read. So definitely, you know, maybe look at some reviews, look at the synopsis, and see if you are going to be able to handle that. But I found it to be really painful at times to read, but I still really enjoyed it. I loved the character development when they were kids, and I definitely recommend it. Okay, and the last book that I read in March was Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco. I did soft DNF this book in January. I just was not in the right mindset, and I just didn't really care to focus on it. So many people love this book, and I just like wanted to be a part of the group, you guys. I just wanted to know. So I decided to just like sit down and read this in one sitting. I think I read this on like the last day of March. I wanted to fit one more book into my month, and so I read Kingdom of the Wicked. This follows a witch. Her name is Amelia. Her twin sister is murdered, and she investigates what happened to her sister. Along the way, she meets one of the princes of hell. His name is Wrath, and he helps her investigate. This is a like YA fantasy romance, I would say. I gave gave this 3 stars because I just like couldn't quite get invested into the plot. I don't know, I felt like it was kind of all over the place. My favorite part of the story was Amelia and Wrath's interactions, and I just wish that we had more of that. I just wish that like that was a majority of the novel and then like the plot was kind of in the background. I do want to read the second one. I feel like the plot for the second book, Kingdom of the Curse, sounds a lot more interesting, and I feel like that could be really great. I've also heard that the second book is more new adult as opposed to this being young adult. I recommend this, but I'm just not like in love with it. I didn't fall in love with the characters. I liked their dynamic, but I wanted so much more, and I just feel like the plot was kind of all over the place. I don't know, but I'm going to continue on with the series. I liked it. I didn't love it, but I liked it. All right, guys, so that is all of the books that I read in the month of March. Go ahead and let me know, what did you read in March? What was your favorite book you read? What was your least favorite book you read? I would love to know. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, please like, please subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next one.